Hello.
Hi, Jen. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Before we get rolling, Jen, that scarecrow contest flyer that you gave me, it's
Yeah.
it's got all kinds of funky dates.
Oh, let me grab it so I can see. Are they wrong?
Well, one place it says Saturday, the October 17th, which is the correct date, but then the next time it lists a date, it's Friday, October 15th, and then
Oh.
all entries will be judged starting at noon on Saturday, October 16th.
Oh, darn it.
Somebody was going too fast.
Yeah. Um, she did give us another flyer. Let me see if I can pull that up and show
Okay.
you.
Is it?
Let's see. Oh.
Oh, it does. It lists another one, Friday, the 15th, in that same paragraph earlier.
Darn it. Okay, on the business promotion portion of the web, well, they have their own website, but it's on our website too.
Let me see here.
Oh, here, I can share this.
Hmm.
It says October 17th through November 1st. I think they're just supposed, well, let's see what it says.
Visitors. Promotions
October
commission.
17th through November 1st. See if I can
Right,
share this.
right. That one is that one I have no problem with.
Yeah.
It gets messier later on.
Because she was having the wrong dates. I think she meant October 17th is the first date to put them up.
So the Friday, I would think she meant Friday the 16th would be after 5 p.m. was when you could start putting them up, but she wrote Friday, October 15th.
Okay. Yeah. I bet you're right.
And then location assignments will be given out to all registered individuals and groups the morning of Friday, October 15th. And then the next bullet point says all entries will be judged starting at noon on Saturday, October 16th.
Oh, crap. I guess we could call her real quick. This is what's on their website. It doesn't say a whole lot. I think she was just trying to show when you could see them. I
Right.
don't know if you,
So take the stroll.
I could try to call her real quick.
You know, it doesn't have to be resolved this instant, but
It'd be good to know.
yeah, just pointing it out just so that we can get clear information out there.
Let me try to call her real quick.
Lynette,
Yeah.
a couple things regarding the agenda. Amy Saxton notified us today she will not be able to attend today. So
Okay, so delete
delete that.
first item.
And then add the acceptance of the request from Carolyn to
Okay.
terminate the contract.
No. Number one and
And then
did you pass that around or you just?
I'm just gonna bring it up.
Okay.
That's fine. And then I sent the Clear Creek Resiliency Coalition strategic objectives yesterday.
Right.
It's just info. I don't really think there's any action to take today on it. Do you?
No, it's something to be thinking about. I don't really want them to, launch and I want them to ask questions and think about it. So
Sure. And then the draft budget presentation.
Yeah.
Jerry's got a request from Morrison to go over some training protocols for their planning commission. So he'll drop off during the work session. Not work session. We have it here as an agenda item. Could we move it to a work session?
I thought that's how we were going to do it. So
Okay.
let's change that to adjourn after staff items.
Right. And then Jen can go too, and then I can shut the video down when it needs to at the end.
Okay. And then we still have the ability to record and okay.
Right. Yeah, actually the recording will still go. It'll just be a work session.
Okay.
But then there'll be no formal, after you adjourn, there's no formal, can't do anything.
Action, so. Right. Sounds good. And is he still intending to bring up, just comment about the town email addresses and how to address that? Or are we going to do that another time?
I've actually had a couple conversations with a couple board members over the last couple days, and I've been sending them multiple emails.
Okay.
And I think I didn't state that specifically to Jerry, but I've been having conversation with board members the whole time. So
okay, maybe we don't need to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think it's still important to say that at some point you need to check the town email addresses, even if the regular communication is not.
Okay.
But
Okay. And had you already gotten that Halloween guidance from County Public Health or?
Yeah, at some point, yes.
Okay. I just didn't see it distributed through town
The
email.
channels, sure.
So, obviously available on the website and we'll distribute it, but those are the guidelines in case anybody's wondering.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There was just one person, and I thought we had sent that to her already. But we'll follow up on that. I need to mark that down.
Somebody
The
that
person,
was wondering
yeah,
about. the
trying to
trunk or
organize
treat.
the trunk or treat thing, yeah, at City Park.
Mhm. Okay. Oh. Okay. Business promotions. I need- Huh, I thought there was a recent email from Matt Taylor on census numbers, but I'm sure not finding it, but that's because, I think because maybe the stream gets diverted when somebody does a reply all and then it doesn't show as being his anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember one on Friday.
No, but I
An
thought
update.
we had one the week before. And I'm just not seeing it. Hmm. Monday the 5th, it was. $53. Could they make the print any smaller? Boy, we're slow signing on tonight.
Do we have anybody?
No.
What do you mean, no? You have me.
Yes, you do, but
Oh,
you can't vote.
True.
You don't count for a quorum. You are much appreciated, but it
and I
won't
can't
be-
see you.
That's the whole idea.
But why?
It's relaxation time.
I see. You go ahead. No attendees yet either.
Okay, Lynette.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Carolyn. Okay, so she said the judging is going to be on Saturday, the 17th,
Okay.
from noon to 2. People are going to start putting them up Thursday. She's emailing them all their location on 6th
Oh,
Street,
okay.
which poll they get and everything. Corinne is coming down Friday afternoon to kind of interview some of the people for the current.
Okay.
And Carolyn will be here Saturday at 9:30 to just make sure everything's going smooth. And she said, did you need a couple more judges, or
I have Sandy
just let me know.
Jackson. I have Sandy Jackson lined up, and Sandy suggested one or two other people. So,
Okay.
but Carolyn did say that you were willing to if we really needed somebody, and I appreciate that.
Sure, yeah, just let me know if you
Sure.
need me and I'll run over.
So,
Okay, cool.
all right.
So maybe we can fix the flyer. I'll see if it's in a format I can alter.
Okay,
All right, thanks.
you bet. Thanks. Hello there, Keith.
Hi. I'm such a technological wizard. I was able to do this without help
I'm so impressed.
or supervision.
There you go.
No. Do you have a pen I could borrow?
Here.
Oh, yeah, I'll find one. Oh, God.
Kent's got one for you too.
I've got it.
Excellent.
I think it's time that Norma goes back to the office.
Hi there, Mary. Hi, Rob. And here's Paul, and I think probably the telephone one is probably Tim. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
It's Tim.
Tim. Oh,
Hi
What's
there,
up,
Tim.
Ray? Hi.
Well, we've got a quorum. We can start anytime.
We have 2 minutes.
I know. I'm not starting early.
Now I'm trying to find a pad.
oh, the flag.
Got it.
And John, hello.
Right.
Oh, my God.
And pumpkin.
There you go.
Does he get a vote or she get a vote?
Mine. Actually, he's taking over for me.
All in favor, raise your paw.
And here comes Jerry right on time. Okay, I think we are ready and everybody's here. So it is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. And I'd like to call our regular meeting to order. And Kent has a view of a flag. So if everybody would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
To the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And roll call. I am Lynette Kelsey, Police Judge. Rob Connell,
Here.
Keith Holmes,
Here.
John Jennings,
Here.
Paul Hingen,
Here.
Mary Smith,
Here.
and Tim Allen.
Here.
Everyone's here. That's wonderful. Agenda approval. We have a few changes. We're going to delete item number 1. Amy Saxton's not able to be here this evening. And we're going to add acceptance of a letter from Carolyn Hone somewhere in probably, let's add it as the last action item. Before we go into information items. And then we're going to make a change and adjourn after we've heard all of the staff items so that we can start fresh with the work session for the budget Because Jerry doesn't need to stay with us for that, and he's got other pressing requests. So anybody else have any items to add or delete? Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended then.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. Do we have anybody who wants to join us for audience business? If so,
I don't think
please please let Jennifer know if that's something that you're interested in doing.
They could type in the chat. I asked the one phone number who I didn't recognize and they didn't answer, but unless Paul Boat has something, he's the only other audience. He can type in the chat if he wants to talk. Looks
Okay.
like he doesn't.
I think that's Ryan, Jennifer. As far as the other number,
Ryan is the other phone number?
he might be.
Okay. Okay. Seeing no one for audience business, we will move on. The payables that we have before us today are from September 17th through October 8th, 2020. Are there any comments, questions? If no one has any questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to accept the payables, approve the payables from September 17th through October 8th, 2020 as presented.
I'll do that, except I think it's 9/18.
September 17th.
September 18th, I'm sorry. September
Well,
18th.
Okay, so in the agenda, it says September 17th. And you're right, on the payables report, it says September 18th.
I hate being
Sorry
picky,
about that.
sorry.
Sorry, guys.
You know, I was going to say something if you didn't, John.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can second it then.
Yes, I second that motion
Awesome.
with the amended changes.
Just change the date. corrected the-
Yeah, with the amended date.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the payables from September 18th to October 8th, 2020 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes, and this is from our meeting on September 22nd, 2020. Any corrections, comments?
I have one, Lynette.
Sure.
Under agenda approval, number one, it says Selectman Connell made the motion, and then all it says is Selectman seconded. It doesn't say who that Selectman was.
Okay.
And that was
So-
all I have.
Okay,
Let me look in my
So
notes
we'll
real
just
quick and
have-
see if I can tell who's the, oh, it was John. It was Rob and John I have
okay.
from my notes.
All right, so it was Selectman Jennings. Thanks, Tim, and thank you,
Okay.
Jen. That was good. Anything else? I had one small item under the park purchase agenda item. I would just like to insert the words "at this time" in the last sentence after the word "requested," because I don't think it was decided that, well, I think when Kent recommended, made his recommendation, he said we wouldn't be purchasing the agility course at that time, but he was recommending the dog watering station. So, and since we're considering the agility course at tonight's meeting, I think it seems appropriate.
Sounds good.
Any other corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 2nd regular meeting as amended.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the September 22nd, 2020 regular meeting as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. So we'll skip to agenda item number 2. Which is the utilities project.
Ryan, are you trying to say something?
No, but I tried to just unmute myself. Can people hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Police Judge Kelsey, members of the board, I'll let Ryan describe the replacement and repairment of the house water pump at the wastewater treatment plant. So.
Okay, Ryan.
What we have is a house water pump that delivers water from the effluent system back into our system as non-potable water that serves numerous amount of equipment throughout the wastewater plant. In 2015, we updated the house water pump to a larger horsepower one to serve the biosolids unit. And at that point, we only purchased one at the time. And over the course of 5 years of a pretty maintenance-free pump, all we had to do was, in 2017, switch out a sensor. Now in 2020, the motor went out. And so I have a bypass pump serving some tanks, some sprayers right now, kind of keeping the system moving. But I need to replace that pump. And my biggest thing about it is everything throughout the wastewater plant, we have redundant pumps and redundant systems. And this one, I do not have a redundant system for. Once that pump goes down, I'm down to a 2-horse trash pump just to kind of keep water moving. And that pump runs 24/7. So it's a constantly running pump. So my recommendation would be to purchase a new pump now at this point, and refurbish the existing one because there's nothing wrong with the pump. It's just the motor that's running the pump, and refurbish that one so I have at least a backup, a redundant pump like I do throughout the entire system. And that's kind of the wrapped up in a nutshell for you if you have any questions.
You know, it's not too
Sounded
much
to me
more.
like a good idea.
Go ahead. I was just
Yeah,
gonna
it
say,
sounded-
it's not too much more expensive just to get 2 new pumps.
Well, I think I don't have the numbers in front of me. One's what the brand new pump is 8,500 and and the motor's 4,500. So I'm assuming then the pump is roughly 4,500 too. It's pretty much a piece of equipment, one motor, one pump. And
Well, that's a
And
really
so
important pump. I mean, that for that wastewater plant, that's an integral part of your system. So I mean, I just think that you make a good point with the redundancy issue, and I think that we all probably have, but I don't know if we have the money. That's all.
So as I understand it, though, the rest of the pump is still very functional. It's just the motor that's not functional.
Yep. On the other one, yes.
Yeah, I don't see any, personally, I don't know the ins and outs of everything, but it looks like it would be reasonable to have a backup and just replace that motor if the rest of the pump is still operational, and then you have that redundancy. Is there any special installation requirement?
The pump is pretty heavy. It goes into a pit at the very end of the contact basin, and we use the backhoe to drop it down into the pit. Installation drops into a canister, and then it just backfeeds all the yard hydrants, all the sprayers through the clarifier. It feeds the chemical feed pumps. I guess at minimum, I need to repair the existing pump just to get going again, because at some point I'll back up on biosolids, because right now I'm just my blanket's getting a little high in the clarifier, and my digester and all that's starting to get full, and we're decanting and stuff like that. So at minimum, I have to at least repair the pump. But I think that we should purchase a new pump, repair the one, and always have at least a spare backup that's functional.
Makes sense.
But I mean, Rob's idea of getting 2 new pumps, or 2 new pumps and motors, the whole package. I'd have to look at the line item. I don't know, but I do have money. I went through it with Mary that we had, I think, $55,000 in there, and I know I dabbed into that a month ago for the air compressor, which is a redundant air compressor also.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know I dabbed into that $55,000 with that $10,000. So
I just don't want you to replace the motor. Sorry, Brian. I don't want you to replace the motor. Then something else, goes wrong, and now we're ended up buying one anyway. You know what I mean? You know how that goes.
Then I'm into buying one anyhow. I see exactly what you're saying on that. So I think a new one would be the best way to go, and then at least try to repair the one. And I mean, it's a gamble. Or do 2 brand new ones and always have a redundant new one. But I guess that would be a decision that would be on to you guys. At least one new one at this point, and then talk about redundancy on a second rebuild, or a new motor on the other one, or 2 brand new ones. And I guess
Lynette, I've seen these things happen before.
Okay, just a sec. Yeah, John's got a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, Ryan, I'm only picking up about $3,500 difference from rebuild to a new pump. And I would wonder about the impellers and whatnot in the pump that's been running 24/7 for 5 years, and the life expectancy on those impellers, packings and stuff like that. I'm with Rob. I say just buy 2 pumps if possible, immediately get a new one. And then if you got the money, pick up a second new one to hold in reserve.
Well, I can save the parts off the old pump then, and I would always have rebuildable pumps. It's one of the Grunfus canister pumps, and we have 2 of those at the water plant too. If you know which ones I'm kind of talking about, Rob. It's not that impeller. It's like a canister pump.
So it looks like we'd be talking about $16,726 instead of $13,352.
And then
Is that
then
correct?
have two brand new ones.
Brand new.
For its capacity, it's best if you have 2. You're going to need a new one, but you're going to need a backup, and you certainly don't want your backup having just paid $4,000 for a new motor not to work for some reason.
Understandable. I agree with that.
Because when you got to go to that one, it's going to be an emergency, and you really want it to work.
Plus, if they're both identical pumps, the retrofitting will be a lot easier with the pipes coming in and out. Everything will fit exactly. So your cycling to repair is going to be a lot faster. Well,
and future costs will be lowered also.
Yeah.
Just down the road, the future costs would be greatly lowered. So.
Okay. Any other selectmen have comments to weigh in on?
Yeah, Lynette, this is Tim. I just wanted to say I agree with John. We should get 2 new ones.
Okay.
And I agree as well. It's only $3,300 difference to get 2 new ones.
Okay.
Can I second that?
All right.
It's New Pump Tuesday, Ryan. Yay!
So, Ryan, that's non-potable water, right?
Yes.
This is for non-potable water, yes.
So that's the water that goes to my house, right?
This is the Water into Wine project. You weren't here for that meeting.
All right.
All right.
Hey, Rob, why don't you make the motion? There's one there.
Okay, there you go. You're right.
I'll second it.
There.
Wait, he's doing math. so
I move to
he's-
approve the purchase of the Grunfus pump and or 2 Grunfus pumps. That would take that to, I'm sorry, I don't have a number for it.
16,726.
16,726. And I authorize the town staff to sign the proposal, please.
You got
I'll
it.
second.
Okay, Tim seconded. It's been moved and seconded to approve the purchase of 2 pumps. And any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you, Ryan. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. All right.
Next, we have a resolution number 9, series 2020, a resolution of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Georgetown, Colorado, enacting a supplemental budget and appropriation in the fiscal year 2020 budget. And this is a public hearing because it is a budget item. So I will call the public hearing to order. It is 6:21. And you've got the supplemental budget items in your packet. Did you have any questions for Mary? Mary, did you want to do any presentation? Or Kent?
Most of this is just clean up for money, received in January and February of 2020 when the work was done in 18. It's just cleaning up loose ends and reallocating some things that went over budget as far as expenses go.
Okay. Everybody able to understand those reallocations? Okay, great.
Yes.
In that case, I would, do we need to take comment from the public? Because it's a public hearing?
You should at least ask.
Okay, here I am asking. Anybody have public comments?
Jennifer, is there anyone on the line or in the chat?
No, I do not see anybody requesting to make a public comment.
Okay. In that case, I will close the public hearing. It is 6:23 p.m. and I would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 9, series 2020.
Oh, heck, I make a motion to approve resolution number 9, resolution of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Georgetown, Colorado, enacting a supplemental budget and appropriation in the fiscal year 2020 budget.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve resolution number 9, series 2020. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next we have appointments. So for the Business Promotions Commission, and I'm going to let Kent and John take this one.
John,
I'll start in. I'm running into problems with some work and mornings and whatnot, and it's becoming impossible for me to do the meetings in the morning. So if somebody else could step up and take care of that, that'd be wonderful. The commission is fun and you know, a lot of good things happen with that commission and helping the town and whatnot. So anybody else that could help me out, that'd be great.
And what time are those meetings?
It's the first Wednesday, generally once a month, and it runs between 8 and 10. Mary.
Is this where I'm supposed to raise my hand?
That would
Yeah.
be lovely.
Early for me.
Maybe Paul Hinton might be interested, you know, he's.
Are you interested, Paul?
Yeah, with COVID, there's
No,
no.
I can't. It interferes with mine tours.
Oh, but it's a business promotions. You could be.
Oh, heck, Paul.
That's when I make the water.
We have some chat says Mary, Mary, Mary.
Oh, I'll get even with that.
Come on. Say
Sure, I'd love to. I'd love to.
That would be wonderful. Very much appreciated.
Pick me.
And gratefully accepted.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it.
Now, what were you telling me before, John, about what?
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
There's a company car that goes with that.
Yeah.
Oh. Is it parked in your garage?
Yeah.
Not mine.
Wait,
It doesn't have
there's a
any
car?
wheels yet.
There's a car attached?
Okay.
See the grease on my
too late
hand?
now.
Can I just ask you a quick question, John, before?
Sure.
Ask away.
Do you, is the assumption that you attend the work sessions also? Because I've noticed they've had a lot of those. Or are you really committed to the just the official meeting?
I was mainly doing the official meetings. I did a few of the work sessions, but it seemed like the official meeting is where the money is asked for and different things that would involve the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, I was just curious. Thanks.
Okay. All right, very good. Next we have the rookie dog obstacle course. for Worland Park.
Police Judge Kelsey and members of the board, this is a request from the park board. They included the letter sent by the Parks and Rec Commission regarding this particular dog obstacle course. It would be placed in the Worland Park, be used in Worland Park. And it would, I had a little bit of comment last time regarding it. I didn't have enough backup for it. I provided you a little bit more backup in the packets this time regarding it. So there you go.
Do we know where in the park they're proposing to put it?
I don't have a drawing of the exact location, but it won't interfere with the ice rink and the ice rink location on the south side of the park. So.
Right. I didn't realize that they were such, permanent kind of or semi-permanent features. So I just wasn't anticipating them being set and then left there. So I just was curious about where they plan to put them.
Along the fence. I mean, so it wouldn't interfere with the other activities in the park. The spacing would be correct, so it wouldn't be a hindrance to other activities in the park. But I don't have an exact location or exact drawing of the location within the park.
So I'm sorry, along the fence line at the south end of the park or west end?
South.
Yeah, it won't be in the south end because that's where the ice rink is, be located during a few months of the year. So probably along the, because there's two horseshoe pits and the, sorry, I almost said the wrong thing there.
I approve.
And the dam warning siren on the west side of the park.
That damn sign.
Well, and
so
I'm thinking more along the east side of the park, along the fencing there.
Okay.
But the east side, the only fence line really starts to get into the ice rink area because otherwise you're talking that rock wall.
Yeah. I mean, not along the fence, but I mean along that border of the park. It could also go on the very north end of the park.
It could.
That's a rock wall too.
Yep.
Parts of it, yeah.
Was this, aside from the location, was this something the Park Commission received requests for from the public, or was this an idea that kicked around with them?
I think a combination of that. I never saw a specific request. I know it was inquired about on a couple different occasions, or it has in the last year or two. But the park board itself was well in favor of the request.
I mean, I've taken an independent poll of people that I happen to run into at the dog park, and no one seems interested in having it. So
really?
That's why I'm curious where it's coming out. And I question one of the bullet points where it's mentioned that it's all the rage. And does that mean we're trying to attract more people and dogs from outside of the community to the park? And then it becomes a problem like Evergreen encountered a few years back? Or is this, do we have agility Georgetown dogs that are?
That wasn't my impression as far as attracting more out of town folks to use the dog park. That wasn't my impression.
Who's training for the Westminster Dog Show?
We have several in the community. No, I don't know, Rob.
Best in show.
My dog's already pretty damn agile. This stuff
You're easy to run away from, Keith.
And it's not an urgency regarding this, although, I delayed it from last meeting. I could have, if there's questions about it, I can have a park board member come and talk with the board about it before we go ahead with the purchase.
From what I see, it looks pretty cheesy. for
Okay.
$3,100.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm all right with it.
well, you don't have a dog.
I don't, what are we doing for cats?
You got,
He has Pumpkin, come on.
So
maybe you need a cat agility training ground.
I guess I would kind of like to see more of a defined proposed location and maybe a little bit have somebody from the Parks and Rec Commission come to the next meeting to talk to us about it before
Okay.
we make a decision.
Maybe we could have it. How many people really care about this?
Yeah, I'd like to find out. I have 3 dogs and I'm not interested in it.
Okay.
So I'd like to see where this demand is coming from.
Okay.
So having a board member at the next meeting makes a lot of sense.
There's the demand.
So
Rob's.
Rob has cats too.
yes.
Yay.
Yes. So, okay, so let's just table this item until our next meeting and request that the Parks and Rec Commission send a member or two to talk to us about it. That would be good.
Like, from what I can tell, this stuff all looks like it would make it a few years and then it would be UV'd out.
Well,
We're gonna
maybe,
put it in your front yard, Keith.
maybe we can get more information on its durability.
How about a pet guillotine?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. Don't even suggest it. So, next on our agenda item, unless anybody has something further to add.
Do you want a motion to table that, Lynette?
Oh, all right, sure.
I'll make a motion to table till the park board can come and talk to us.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table this agenda item till next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next we have a letter from Carolyn Hone that Kent would like to present for our acceptance.
And I just have the I got it up, Jennifer. Just received a letter requesting, Carolyn requested to, according to our contract with Carolyn, we had, the termination clause was to give 30 days notice. At any time. She provided a letter, said per the terms of our contract, would like to terminate the contract between the town of Georgetown and Home Consulting LLC. And she'll continue, she requested a basically accept the resignation of her position as a Georgetown Special Events Coordinator, effective or would continue until November 2nd. She'll fulfill different things that are occurring this month, basically a couple different things with the Promotions Commission, and then she'll be done as far as the contract with the town. This came about last week, and I present that to you in order to accept that contract, and then the Promotions Commission leadership and myself will work on engaging another person to be part of that position. Carolyn got us off to a good start.
Yes.
Although there's been, hiccups along the way, but there always would be with the person in this position working with the business community. And she's done quite a bit as far as communication with the business community. And communication sometimes got difficult, and that's where felt that we're coming to a place where it would be better to part ways, and then we'll pick up with somebody else. So that's what I have regarding this. And it's easier being a contract employee to disengage. I did write up later a short action item, but I didn't get it distributed to you. So I'll leave that alone for right now, and I'll just stand for any questions that you might have. So, and I don't think I have anyone else or the leadership from the promotions commissions to state anything else. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to thank her for the hard work. She took over in a very difficult time, and I think she did very well. And we've come a long way, and I appreciate all of her efforts.
Lynette,
Yes.
one quick item. I have the contract in front of me and I reviewed it in anticipation of tonight. And of course, either party can terminate, and if either party says we're done, then you're done. You can't force either party to stay in it. And I agree, it's a 30-day termination, but it's clear from her letter that she would prefer that her work be terminated as of, she gave us the 30 days, October 9th to November 8th is the 30 days, and that's for the contract. But it appears to me that she would like her obligations to be complete as of November, did she say 2nd or 3rd, I think?
Second.
So that is one thing that ought to be in the board's motion accepting effective November 2nd. That way her obligations are complete at that time. Also, the contract says that we do pay her for services performed through the effective date of termination. So it'll be through November 2nd. And separately, Kent can follow up with her. The contract does say that any documents, computer output that was produced during the term of the contract are the property of the town because the town paid for it. So that's kind of a follow-up thing that the staff can do with her. Other than that, I don't have anything more, but I wanted to mention the date as something that ought to be in your motion accepting the term.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions or? Then I would entertain a motion to accept Carolyn Hohn's resignation effective November 2nd.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept Carolyn's resignation effective November 2nd, 2020. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, on to short-term rentals. Okay. Thank you for the memo. It was very helpful in organizing thoughts, and it was nice to see what other jurisdictions have done. So I'm gonna let you take it away, Kent.
We've had discussion on short-term rentals. That basically the bigger part of the discussion started this summer with the appeal of a short-term rental license at 300 Taos. And then the board had set up a discussion item at their August 11th meeting, and then set a work session on September 1st. And we had a rather lengthy work session regarding the short-term rentals. There was a number of concern expressed. I tried to organize them into different categories. And if I missed a certain category, you can please add to it, or you can detract from it, or do whatever you want as far as the number of categories. And what I tried to do with each of the categories was to either answer the question that I think was either posed or the issue raised. What Georgetown's code currently says, if it says anything, and then what other communities try to provide. And as it went through, and then it's included in it was included in the packet, so it's part of public information. As far as, are there illegal short-term rentals in Georgetown? And that one, I think we're going to have to keep up on a periodic basis, providing you and making sure there's there, because that is a constant battle regarding, are there illegal short-term rentals in Georgetown? So the second one was, should there be a fine for legally operating a short-term rental? Our current code sets out certain things, and it can go to municipal court. And a short-term rental permit may be revoked. That's the extreme end of it. But there was a couple other examples provided for you. And one of them that both Fort Collins example and a Nederland example. And a lot of that is the ability to immediately suspend the license. And that may not have been thought of when the code was first brought out. But since we suspended short-term rental operations this spring for between March and May, because of the COVID situation, it kind of brought that as an example that probably should be included in our code. And then there's, should there be additional criteria for revocation of a license? Again, it goes through what our current code says, and then gives an example regarding Minturn as far as what they provide, and also Fraser. The next category is there be a commercial water rate for short-term rentals. Currently, the short-term rentals are assessed at the single-family residence rate, which is 1 EQR. Hotels and B&Bs are assessed at 0.3 EQR for each room, and then 1 EQR for the manager's unit. That kind of gets in a different category, and I think we might actually be hurt if we went to that format for the commercial water rate for short-term rentals. Because then we get into arguing about which bedrooms are being used for the short-term rental. And we could end up with a number of the short-term rentals actually paying less in water than they do now. If they only have 2 bedrooms, that's only 0.6 EQR. The other thing that could come up is the multifamily units. Normally, they're not the ones that are paying the water. It's included in their rent. So it's by a management company or by the HOA or by somebody. And that's usually not them. So that one, I think, would be a little more difficult to administer, although that was a hot topic of discussion at the work session that we had. On the next categories, it states on E, notice and hearings for appeal, what is the actual staff cost? That really depends on the different appeals and how many inquiries we get. There is a baseline of time, it's probably 2 to 4 hours based on how many contacts we have to make, how many different people we have to do. We do have to post the property. We do have to post at our posting locations, set up agendas and different types of things, set up meetings. But the appeals, it's kind of a range of how much it costs. But keep that in mind when we talk about what's the cost of the appeal. So it can be less than the amount for the appeal cost is kind of an arbitrary number. There's not a, $120. So number F says, should there be a waiting period for application? And surprisingly, I only really found of about 20 different communities looked at short-term rentals, both myself and other staff, is the Minturn example as far as the waiting period for ownership. But I think we have pretty strong interest in this information just because it causes, it is getting more prevalent every single year. Mm-hmm. The houses for sale and the amount of inquiries we get at town hall whether by myself or by the other staff members here at Town Hall, Jennifer and Mary, that what can I do if I buy this house and want to turn it into a short-term rental? How can that happen? And we're answering a lot of questions, and there's might be a method. In Minturn, they have 2-year ownership. No property shall be licensed as a short-term rental unless the owner has owned the property for 2 years. So whether it's 1 year or 2 year, I think that would provide an incentive that seemed to be an awful lot of the discussion at the work session as far as trying to maintain the community that we have here in Georgetown. So if that's the goal of something to do, this might be a way to try to achieve a part of that goal. I don't think it'll eliminate some of the activity or some of the behaviors. Well, it won't eliminate the behaviors of the people who rent the short-term rental units, but the behavior, what's happened with certain properties in town. And then get into additional application requirements and additional operating requirements. Those were in your packet, and I won't go over those now. But there's quite a few examples from different communities, and I could have added more than that. But I left them as examples. They were pretty, once you get into reading several of them, they start looking alike. So, and then the next category is, should there be a parking program? Leadville had an example and Nederland had an example. Although Nederland is more about posting in a prominent place where you should park. And staff was going more towards that idea because it was, I know you brought that up in the work session, John, regarding how it happened in a couple of communities that you had previously lived in. But for here, it didn't seem to be, you can let us know if we should pursue that more, I guess is the way I should say that.
Yeah.
And then it says in the renewal letter, notify neighbors of any complaints, letter J. Gives the example from the Georgetown Code, and then the slightly modified example from Nederland, that they include any complaints or summons that have been recorded and post that within the renewal. Buena Vista also has something along those lines to suspend the license if there's certain types of violations. And then K is talking about, should the pricing be the same for application and renewal? And letter L, well, K is our current code. We have a different price for the renewal and as well from the initial permit. But we do spend quite a bit of time on renewals. It isn't that much different from the initial application. There is a little bit more, but it's not twice as much. L is, should there be a requirement limiting proximity? What are the parameters? Georgetown's current code doesn't have anything regarding that. Durango had an example, and they basically had not more than one vacation rental home per block, or street segment, they called it.
Street segment.
That would be interesting. It would be a little bit of difficult implementation in Georgetown, but it's something we could discuss. But after you've started the program, obviously there'd be particular obstacles with the number that are currently involved. And then how do you define a street segment? I'm sure we could work through that, but it gives you an example. There weren't that many examples actually, as far as proximity, or at least in the research that I did. That doesn't, by no means saying that I looked at every single code in Colorado. And then, should HOAs be required to show approval for any multifamily residence that applies for a short-term rental? That was M. And it gives an example for Collins. But Then that was the background, and I'm only doing that as part of the public information since there was so much public involved in both the work session and in earlier stuff that happened this summer.
Mhm.
That's why I'm going through this in a little bit more detail than a normal agenda item. And then in summary, I went through each of those categories and one extra at the end that I didn't include in the research part of it, and provided what could be a possible recommendation from the staff as far as what the board should consider in any changes to the ordinance. And you have the matrix there as far as just within the boxes stating like illegal short-term rentals that would just provide periodic updates. If there's something else regarding that you'd like to have. In letter B, fines and penalties for STRs, we recommend adding the suspension to the options for the tools we can use to, if we find one that's illegally operating, it can be a warning, suspension, revocation, or bring them to municipal court. Or it wouldn't be revocation, but if they're doing different things or different complaints regarding them. There's three different things as far as the criteria for revoking or revocation of a short-term rental. Just gives you for your consideration. The commercial water rate, I kind of covered that in detail earlier regarding that. If you would like to pursue that, we can pursue that. I'm just telling you of the obstacles that would be involved. The notice hearings for appeal gives you an option there. The waiting period before an application allowed. Staff is recommending at least a 1-year waiting period. Could be 2 years, and Jerry can probably speak on, what's the legalities of that. But seeing that, I saw that as a real possibility. And Jerry, I don't know if you wanted to make mention now or anything else regarding the legality of that.
No, that's because a license like this is a privilege, not a right. Kind of like a liquor license, it's a privilege, not a right. It's not a use by right. And so you can put those time constraints on it as long as you have anything like a reasonable legislative purpose. It's perfectly fine.
In G, additional application requirements, we put 2 recommendations. Basically an acknowledgement signed by the owner and local agent that they've read and understand all the rules. I know it's kind of just, that's a cheesy one to use Keith's language, but I think it's actually merited because we get questions. The police officers get questions sometimes regarding what is actually a local agent, what qualifies, and have arguments about that. And then the maximum occupancy of 2 people per bedroom, because we get in discussions with that on people's applications as well. When they say, well, I have a rollout, I have a futon, I have this, I have that, and that's where you end up with 10, 12 people in a house, and it's party central, so that's where our complaints come about. So, and those type of situations.
I would like under that, I guess what's coming to mind is the restrictions that were put on the most recent license. That house has a lot more bedrooms than they are allowed to rent for short-term rental. And so maybe an additional clause that says, unless otherwise restricted due to off-street parking or other circumstances, just so that you're not leading them to believe that because they've got 5 bedrooms, they can have at least 10 people when that house, because it had limited parking, was limited to just renting 2 of the bedrooms, the maximum of 4 people, maximum 2 cars. So,
And I guess I would say one more thing in addition to that, give a caveat to what I said as far as that's adults. If it's kids involved, that's usually in a lot of different codes. You just limit it to the adults, not to children in sleeping bags in different places. So if that's what you would like to have.
okay.
And then in H, additional operating requirements as far as a renter information notice or brochure posted that includes, whether it's given or on the website, still would like one physical in the building, wherever they're renting, especially showing the identification of the parking spaces, because that seems to be one of the biggest lightning rods for the neighbors is when they're parking in the wrong area.
Mhm.
And then and then also includes the location of the trash and trash pickup and the rules surrounding the trash pickup, which also is a particular issue of concern that comes up in the short-term rentals. And then also including their business license number in any advertisement of their place. Parking program, staff doesn't have a recommendation, but if the board would like to, we can pursue that. I mean, this is just the staff recommendations on it. The renewal, notify neighbor of complaints. We could include the number of complaints or the different types of things in the renewal. And I don't know if there's any boundaries or restrictions regarding that should be included with that. I didn't go over that point with Jerry beforehand. And then the application fee, we could have a change to the fee schedule regarding renewal and versus the initial application fee. The limit the number of the STRs in the proximity, there's no recommendation from staff. If we do have something, the one thing that staff would say is that there should be different rules for multifamily units, obviously. And then what would be the transition period? Try to work that out. Show the HOA approval. If legally allowed, it could be included. There was some discussion at the different meetings about reducing the percentage. Staff does not have a recommendation on that. That would be a policy decision by the board. And then what would be the transition if it would be some different percentage than we have currently. O is add a criteria for a historic district.
You froze up.
He understands his computer froze up. He's trying to fix it.
Okay.
I'll come back in a second. Now, can you hear me?
Yep.
They add the criteria for a historic district. I do think, I didn't find an example of this, but just to add it as a criteria to consider, I think would be worthwhile, because when I told different people objecting to the appeal that we had earlier this summer, I said there wasn't really anything in the code currently that allows me to provide criticism of the application according to whether it's a contributing structure or as part of a historic part of zone, those type of things. So I don't, again, would have to lean on Jerry a little bit as far as crafting that type of additional criteria, but I think if it's just was one of the criteria, I don't think it would be that much of a problem. And then there was miscellaneous changes as far as the timing regarding the application versus the date which comments must be received. That's just a cleanup thing. And then one more thing the officers talked about is some issues that have come up is, again, it goes back to parking. People rent a short-term rental and then they have trailers or boats or campers. And even if they have parking spaces, then they end up parking their trailer, and that ends up to be an issue for the neighbors. So those are just some things that after reviewing the information that came across on the different meetings we've had on this over the last couple months, this could be something that staff could help draft an ordinance, and then we could go through the ordinance procedure if we want to make actual changes to the short-term rental ordinance. But there are a couple things that staff sees that could be changes that could be effective. If this is not a complete list or you want something else added on to it, please let us know. If you don't want to proceed with anything, don't think there should be any changes at this point, please let us know. But I went through all this information, and it's not like I'm asking for tonight, tell staff to go draft an ordinance, but we can. So did that help as far as trying to define what the questions were during the short-term rental discussion?
I thought it did. Thank you.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's extremely educational.
Okay. So does everybody want to just ponder this and maybe come up with, decide whether, first off, whether we take any action and recommend that staff draft a revised ordinance on this, or are there issues that you do want to take some action on and figure out what those are? Maybe we can think about it and come to a consensus at the next meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
How much time is left on the moratorium?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was going to ask that. Kent, do you know?
Jennifer's telling me from the other room, August 11th was when it started. It was a 3-month moratorium, so it's till November, I thought.
And you can easily extend it. Moratoria are commonly extended. Lynette, I do think that the chart that Kent has provided is a really good kind of workbook style thing for the board, and maybe the idea might be that the board members kind of make notes on their own copy of this in between now and next meeting, kind of be prepared. I've been making some notes as we went through it. It really organizes it well, I think.
Yeah.
Next meeting, we can just take each topic and get really quick consensuses on them. Yes, no, in, out. And I'd be making notes during that meeting, of course, and can turn that into a revised ordinance. And if it looks like based upon that, we'll have a good draft, but that draft will have to come back, because saying, yeah, do that is first step. And then when you see that written up, it's 90% of the way there, but there's very often there's 10% more that needs to get fixed when you actually see it.
Sure.
And so I think that's probably another meeting to do that. And then it's in final and ready to go through first reading, second reading. Along the way, you'll probably burn up more time, as Keith points out, than you have in the moratorium, but that's easy. We can research that and maybe at the next meeting plan for a resolution extending the moratorium, since we'll have a better schedule, I think, in mind of how long it'll take to take this to final, assuming the board wants to make changes. I saw a fair amount of heads nodding during the various topics. I think that we'll find at least quite a number of topics that board members will want to have changes on.
Sounds reasonable to me. Is everybody in agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. The other informational item that we had given to us was the financial statement for September, which had sales tax revenues for the month of August in year to date, and surprisingly, it was pretty strong. I was pleased. So, any comments on any of the financial statements? Okay. Onward. COVID-19 emergency order update. I think this kind of ties into the intro of the draft of the Clear Creek County Resiliency Coalition. Isn't it collaboration? Collaboration, I think it is. Came up with a mission statement, vision, and some objectives for ongoing recovery efforts. And it wasn't in your packet, but it was in an email that you received. So take a look at that. What we're being requested to talk about and come up with is what would Georgetown's Board of Selectmen feel was important to like 1 or 2 items on that strategic objectives list to make a priority, so that we would put effort into taking action towards that, even if it's not our, for instance, mental health. We don't really have a mental health agency. However, we could make it a priority to try and get those mental health resources out to our public, out to our citizens, that kind of thing. So Kent and I just wanted to provide you with what we've been discussing, and have you start thinking about it, so that it doesn't sit on the shelf and never have any action taken. So we want to actually put some of these things into action as best we can. So anything to add, Kent? Okay. Did anybody have any questions about the strategic objectives vision statement? Okay. Good. Census 2020 update. Are you all getting those figures? Matt Taylor's been providing them now that Ulla Karen Johnson isn't the census coordinator any longer. And as you probably noticed, the census self-reporting and probably the door knocking the deadline was extended back to the end of October, so there is more time. You've got a shared screen in front of you.
Between the follow-up and the self-response, the state is up to almost 99%. So I don't think they have that for Georgetown, but they did state that Georgetown self-response came up almost 1% in that first week of October. So it's the combination of the self-response and the follow-up knocking that they've had, but I don't think he has the follow-up knocking on this.
No, this is just self-response stuff.
Just the self-response stuff. So.
Okay, and as I think I have mentioned before, when I spoke with Ulla Karen Johnson before she left, that our percentage is showing at 53.8%, but that is of total number of residences. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should assume that this is 53.8% of the total residents per people. And because some of our homes are second homes, they're going to have their census reported elsewhere, and it's gonna drag our numbers down a bit because not everybody counts Georgetown as their place of residence. So just to give that a framework. Any questions? Okay. Update on Taos Street Water Project.
It's happening. They're digging in the street. They're making progress. They are encountering quite a bit of water, but more not overwhelming. So they are moving ahead. One thing we're gonna end up with a change order with is they are having, because of how soaked or how the ground itself, we're changing out the ground. We're having them haul, instead of putting the dirt right back in the hole after they've buried it according to specifications as far as the actual water line itself. We're having them haul the dirt out and then grab the dirt that's dry out at the what came out of the dredging project and filling that in the hole. But because of all that transportation of it and using the different dirt, there is going to be a change order for that amount. And I'll probably have it to you by next meeting, but we've instructed them to go ahead and do it. And he gave me an estimate. We talked about it this morning at the construction meeting between Bob Orsatti, Ryan, myself, and the contractor. But it'll end up between 11 and 21,000. It'll probably end up around $15,000 as far as the change order in order to do that. So I just want to let you know that that's what's happening as far as one of the operations. They did give us a proposal to do a drainage bypass, and did not present that to you because both Ryan and myself thought it was a bit much and that we could be able to do that once these guys are done with the project. So they had an estimated cost of around 50 grand to get that accomplished. As far as a drainage bypass, which I described to you in an email, basically from the backstop area to the north side of 11th Street. But since the trench will have already been done once, it'll be, and our crews with all hands on decks will be able to do it. It's just going to be a matter of timing, whether it's done after these guys are out of the way this fall or in the spring, even with the drainage as it is. But we're looking forward. We have the pipe on hand. It'll be just the connections at either end that will be additional cost for us. So we didn't want to hold them up. We're looking at timing here. We want that water line done and out of the way so Paul can get to his house. And and we are going to be trying to communicate to the people on your block, Paul, when they're going to be coming to that block, next week sometime, and making sure that you still have access to your house as well as your neighbors on your block. So it's just a few houses, but I'm going to try to keep access to it as much as possible. And then there'll have to be some coordination, obviously, with the services, with the water main. But that's the update. They are basically past tonight. They just made it to the end of the first house there. And they'll be proceeding apace tomorrow and the rest of the week.
Okay, any questions about that?
Have you been pretty satisfied with Jim Noble?
This is a much better contractor than the people that we had, the contractor we had on the water project last year.
Okay.
And John Noble, one of the main parties in the company, he's been on site, but he wasn't there last week, so it was a little bit slower. But fixing the problem that we had at 11th and Taos, which was like a spaghetti soup, that they actually had lines butted up against each other. Rather than connecting them, let's put a concrete block on either end and let's don't connect and loop that water main. That type of stuff in the street. And I know the projects were probably done at different years, different times, but we fixed the problem. So, and got it corrected, and they're a good group to work with so far, and the speed at that they're going, most days are pretty good. There was a few days last week that was pretty slow, but that was because one of the generals was not on site. So, and he's going to be on site from here on out.
What's the estimated time of completion, not counting our own guys going back in for the?
They're going to be much shorter than it's allowed by contract. It's 12 weeks contract time, but they will probably be done in 6 weeks, maybe 7.
But they're 3 weeks in, right?
Yeah. But they'll be done with the water for sure. Then they got to get that little piece of sewer done over by the mobile home park. Okay. But the water will be done by the middle of November.
So Taos will be cleaned up by then.
Yeah.
Over.
Good. All right. Anybody else? Okay. What do we have on the warming hut restrooms?
I should have told you at the beginning to take that.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't have enough to say.
Okay. All right. Halloween guidance. So the county public health department has put out a set of guidance, and Kent said he had received it. I received it on my county email, but I hadn't seen it come in on town. So we're going to share that with everybody just to make sure everybody gets it. They're also trying to follow the state. The state's putting out some recommendations. People are trying to come up with creative ideas to keep Halloween alive, but do it safely. But because of the spiking in cases, Clear Creek County is up to 17 new cases of COVID in the last 2 weeks.
How many?
And that's pretty alarming, I think.
What was that number? 17
new cases.
Yeah.
In the last 2 weeks.
A 30% rise.
Say what, Keith?
I think that's about a 30% rise.
Yeah, it's pretty drastic. Most of the rise in cases has been from people traveling to go visit friends and relatives in states that have even higher case incidents, and then bringing it back with them. There are a lot of people that are in quarantine and trying to wait it out. There's testing available. Just want to make sure everybody continues to be aware of that. But they are definitely recommending avoiding large groups, doing things as families, and keeping social distancing and staying safe. So I would not be at all surprised if there are a lot of residents here in town who would normally have be participating with passing out candy. I wouldn't be at all surprised if folks say this is the year that they turn out the lights and stay safe. I think that's my tendency. I'll just put it out there because I just think we need to all do our part, and I understand it's a holiday that's a lot of fun, but the fun doesn't keep going if it makes people ill. So I'm going to be one of the ones that turns their lights out and stays quiet this year. So
Our house looks haunted on a sunny day in the summer. So, like, kids are afraid to even come near the house as it is. So
okay. So we'll make sure that that guidance gets passed around and readily available. And it's also, I believe it's also readily available out on the county website in all of the COVID notices and that section. So any questions?
Because, the school has always, or, parents at the school have done the trunk or treat, and that's been typically a weekday activity regardless of when Halloween falls. But we know that Halloween is coming and all that. Is there any date other than the obvious, October 31st, that is being recommended or shared with the school and the kids and the parents, is, so that people know when to turn their lights off if that's what they're going to do, or they know when? I mean, what's
This is Randy. I can tell you, Halloween being a Saturday, that's when the trick or treat mostly will happen. They're talking about doing the trunk or treat on the Friday night, and the Friday would be the day that the school would traditionally do their walk through and collect candy. I'm not certain about how all of these are going to continue. I don't believe the courthouse is still going to do their same practice. The business owners downtown, usually that's not a big part of that walk the school kids take. But last I heard, there was still conversation about them wanting to try to do trunk or treat Friday evening.
I did also see something come through county email today that they've reorganized the Halloween parade that goes through the courthouse, and they're going to do it in smaller groups, and they're going to pass out candy using distancing, decorated tubes. And so they're trying to manage it in a careful way. They're also recommending that any candy that the kids collect sit and not be touched for at least 48 hours before they start munching on it, just to be safe. And that's going to be a tough call. How many kids can just let it sit for 48 hours? So, but anyway, the courthouse is going to be open for anybody who wants to see the kids parade through, but it will be a much smaller event than it has been in the past. So,
Jerry, are you going to give out legal advice? And a candy?
Yeah, that's the trick part.
Yeah, exactly. Like some kid comes to your door, you just go comb your hair.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I like chocolate, just milk chocolate. So if anyone is,
Okay.
John and I have your address, Jerry.
I thought that was John. He was going to be bringing the pizza, wasn't he?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
okay.
I've got some apples.
Yeah, right. Apples.
Yeah, we don't want your stinking
I don't want
apples.
apples.
I'm looking for razor blades.
Ooh.
Keith.
Wow, Keith. Wow.
Well, I need to shave.
Right. Yeah. So does anyone have anything else?
I have one item.
Yes.
I infrequently email board members things. I've been emailing you, as you know, about the administrator's evaluation, and Keith has turned his in, and so has Lynette. So I'll be bugging you.
How unusual that I have.
I was shocked and pleased.
I think one of the forms you got had not been filled out.
Yes, but I did get the one that had, so
I
thank you.
had to have special help.
No
Okay.
problem.
I apparently am
event,
not getting. I'm
Please
not
know
getting
that,
your emails.
well, I said, you're not?
No,
You got
I
the
would-
one that I sent you, right?
no, I didn't.
Ah,
And I didn't either, I
Don,
don't
sent
think.
it.
here's
Okay.
what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna, offline work with Jennifer to make sure I've got the right set, because I know they were revised. But make sure you check your Board of Selectmen, town email, because, well, occasionally I've in my system, I think some of you have got your personal, but I rely on the broadcast emails I make being just to your selectmen. And obviously that's something you want to be checking anyhow. If Jennifer's forwarding on things we hear from citizens and just all that stuff, because I'm a little lazy too sometimes. I'm looking at my personal email and thinking I've caught it all. But that's why we have the official accounts. So look at those if you would. And I'll follow up with those of you that maybe have an excuse for not having filled that out. But I'll get with all of you. We'll get that done. So thanks for your help on that. And thank you, Keith, for leading the charge. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I feel quite vindicated.
Wow.
Yeah. And Lynette, you don't have to adjourn the meeting just because I'm leaving and starting a new meeting. It's up to you.
No, I wanted it to be separate. The budget the work session for the
Got it.
budget can definitely be separate from the action meeting. So I
Okay.
think it's cleaner that way.
Very good.
Even if we don't do much of a actual break, So,
Terrific.
Lynette, Paul wanted to say something,
yes.
I think. Paul, you'll have to unmute yourself. Oh, no. Okay. I got the wrong information then.
Oh, okay.
He had his hand raised. My bad. I thought he wanted to talk.
No worries. No worries.
You're stretching.
So, okay. If no one has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn our regular meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, it is 7:29 p.m. and it's been moved and seconded to adjourn our regular meeting so that we can convene as a work session to introduce the 2021 budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The regular meeting is now adjourned and I'd like to call the work session to order.
Okay.
Thank you, Jerry. He's already gone.
Can we
Okay.
have
Mark,
like
man,
3 minutes?
lucky
You
dog.
sure can. Yep.
Okay.
Let's do that. Short
Do you have
break.
music in the background for that?
I'll take my computer with me.
Wait a minute, I think I want to make a phone call to John and recap that conversation we had
Boy,
earlier.
you blew it, Mary.
No, that's all right.
You're good.
You're gonna regret your decision.
Yeah, thanks. You can talk to me later. You owe me, buddy. You owe me, buddy.
I do owe you.
I know where you live.
Big time.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. So I guess I got to go to town and figure out how to use the government one, huh?
Please. I mean, it is the official one that's posted on the website. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, short of tracking you down in person, that's how they would do it. So.
Well, there's probably 2,000 messages since I've never opened it up.
There could be.
Do I have one really?
Yeah, you do.
Apparently you got one.
I know I've got one and I haven't used it.
But remember then, if any questions ever came up and your records were subpoenaed, all your personal email would become public knowledge because you retrieve your work information on your personal email.
They're gonna love it.
I don't intend to be an embezzler or any kind of.
We'll check your history on your searches, Rob.
There have been requests for public record, open records requests, even when there was really no underhanded dealings going on. So, and it just does expose you. So be aware.
Okay.
Oh,
Then
no,
I
look
didn't
at
know
that.
that.
Gone dark.
So,
Oh,
It's an interesting picture, Randy. Oh, there you are. I
couple
thought
of
maybe
cameras.
that was Alka-Seltzer in a glass.
I thought it was cocaine.
That's a candle
a candle.
holding my pad up.
What do I know?
Okay.
Everybody brings their baggage, what it might be.
Give me a beer while you're talking about them.
Can I make a motion to approve the draft budget?
A little premature. We still have a lot of discussion.
We can adjourn.
We'll keep it nice and short.
Yeah.
As short as we can.
So when does Mary pick up her keys for her promotions car?
Well, we have to find them first. I'm not sure where they are.
Is that the 29 or the 49?
I want the gas tank fully, tapped off. Tapped
There is
off.
no gas tank in
With
here.
real gas?
Check the fluids under the hood. Fresh windshield washers.
Have I got a car for you?
Call the blacksmith and get the horses rehooked. Reshoot.
There you go.
One mule or two?
God.
I want a Surrey on top.
Lynette, did you want to keep recording this and putting it on the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we're done chattering. I think we're back. Paul's not quite back yet. So another minute or so.
No, I meant as far as the video, did you want that recorded and on the website?
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Jennifer is gone now, so.
Okay.
She's right there.
Had to go lock the door too. So.
Okay. So. All right. Okay. Paul is back and hopefully Mary comes right back. There she is. Okay. We are all back, I think. So let's dive in.
And please, Judge Kelsey and members of the board, this is the 2021 budget. And I guess the theme of this budget is if and budget, because there's a lot of ifs still going around, or there could be a couple ands. So A and D. On your first page, and I'm starting with, so I should have that up on the, starting with, I didn't do that right. Share screen. Starting with your front page there. Says draft on it. General fund at the top. And I'll just be hitting a few items. I don't know if you can see my little hand as the cursor. Can you guys see that on the share screen?
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out is the fund balance, which is this number right here, ending fund balance, shows 522,000. Part of that reason is, or most of that reason is the entire amount for that's dedicated to the road project, basically from the sales tax that we haven't spent over the last 2 years because of the Gateway project.
Okay.
We've saved it to do different things regarding the Gateway project, is included in the expenses. So even though we have expenses over revenues in here, $406,000, about 377,000 of that, or the vast majority of it, is regarding those sales tax revenues that were dedicated to the road improvement project. So if we would spend that entire amount, which would be hard to see if we'd send out a project for bid and they'd have the exact amount we had in budget.
Does it smell like good salsa?
No, super onion. Super.
Something like that as well. Maybe we could add salsa on the road project as well. I'm not sure, but that's most of it involved with this. I also want to show that this beginning amount up here at 2019 actual 377,923. Actually, for the beginning of 2018, 1 year before that, we were down to $195,558. And you notice that projected at the end of 2020, now part of it, I just said 370,000 of it is extra road stuff. Road money set aside that still need to be used for the roads. But that's increased quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 years. So I just that's an overall point to make regarding this. A little bit.
Before you move on,
Yes.
for some of the newer board members, it is recommended that we keep a reserve balance of at least 3 months worth of expenditures, just in case. And that 522,000 represents even a little bit more than the projected 3 months expense.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
We have when I first came on the board, we did not have that. We weren't even close. And so this is a very, very good achievement, and we're in good shape. But it took a lot of years of hard work. So thank you.
Well, and the other part, like I mentioned, the theme of this budget, if things continue somewhat normal as far as our revenue generation. You receive the latest month's, I tried to say last and latest at the same time, latest month's treasurer's report, and that included the sales tax is still doing well this year, but that there can be a whole number of events, as we've seen this year, that can disrupt that revenue generation. I don't think it's something to hide from, or because there's things we can do if or and regarding the budget, but it is something that we're aware of and the board should be aware of as we're going forward. But it's awful hard to take the worst case scenario and then try to budget for it, because it puts us in too much of a hole. If we have to meet those, we'll meet it. We'll cross it, as that old phrase says, cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. So if it comes about, and there's too many variables to try to put it in this budget. So when we get to the general fund revenues, I'll point out something else that is the basis of this thing. These first couple pages, and Mary can chime in at any time. I'm sure she's just thrilled that I'm talking so she doesn't have to speak on it. The fire maintenance fund, it shows the fund balances. Often it's in the individual budgets, it won't show you the actual budget balance that we have going into a year. It just assumes you're going from zero.
Mhm.
But for the fire maintenance fund, that's why we can if they would actually do the work to maintain a couple of their properties, we would deficit spend for that fund. Just a little bit, but our fund balance would be okay. So that's one of those overall things. The Historic Structure Preservation Fund, one thing that Mary said today is the ordinance that set up that fund in order that we contribute $10,000, $10,100, because with the interest. Each year we contribute 10,000 rather than a percentage. It caps at 125,000, and obviously we're well below that as far as the ending balance there of 68,000. The Conservation Trust Fund, it does include in expenses if we get to a Strauss Park project. We could include, and it's perfectly, this would be a perfect use of those Conservation Trust Fund dollars, which is lottery dollars that come to the town of Georgetown. 25,000 that's within this budget to include in the construction phase of Strauss Park. Then we move to the next page. I will go faster, tell you as we go on here. The Town Promotion Fund is limited. As you can see here, we're having to help out with the general fund, difference between total revenues and total expenses, because the revenue source for the promotions is very limited. It really only comes from two different sources. And we decided not to go to request a lodging tax from the voters, but I can see somehow, some way, whether through it's a vote or something else, we need to have a dedicated revenue source for that town promotions fund that is stronger than what it is now. If we want to do the things to help promote the town and business. I mean, that's part of the decisions about what type of town you want to see in the next 10 years, 20 years. That's part of the things that make those things happen. If you think that's a good idea or not. And we'll talk more about these individual funds as they get going on it. Sales tax, I don't have anything right now to talk regarding the sales tax capital improvement fund, although we do have a fund balance of over 300,000 in that fund to let you know. And then water and sewer, it's hard to seize because water and sewer are done on a different basis. They're not done on a cash basis. They're done on an accrual basis. And assets, and then they have an assets that's not $6 million worth of cash, but it's that in assets. But the total revenues and total expenses, we are getting better regarding water funds. But, you know, if someone would come up to you and say, that's an awful lot more because of our water rates, I think we're getting to a point now where we'll be able to do something different regarding the annual rate increase on the water side. We'll have to keep looking at it. So we'll just consider it. But anything in water is expensive, both water and sewer. So, and it's a utility. It's like you have to have the money now in order to do things. And you guys, the town was hurting about 10 years ago when they built the two plants originally, or a little over 10 years ago. And they were in a deficit as far as those two funds. And they had to do some extreme financing in order to get, and we're finally getting to a point where it's in a fair shape, not a great shape, it's fair shape. So I know that a lot of people do comment regarding our water rates and our sewer rates. And the sewer rates, we're still, if you notice, we're still a little bit under. I think that'll change as the apartment buildings and the other buildings down in Bighorn come online, and as the rate increases occur, and as our debt, that debt is over 30 years, I think. One issue, 20 years on another issue. So as that's the hard part of those, both the water and sewer is more burdened with debt than the water system is. So, Mary, am I saying anything out of line or out of order?
Nope, A-okay.
Okay, okay. And then the last one, the agency fund, that's just the transfer, just the pass through for the visitor center. So that's the overall, even this at the end on all budgets, you know, it's a little bit more expenses than revenues, but that 370,000 is basically the road project that we haven't spent the last 2 years. So if we would then spend it entirely, yes, it would be more than, it would be deficit spending in 2021, but it's a carryover. So it's not, this is pretty close to a balanced budget as far as what's presented right now. I will have a couple items as we go through, pretty major items that are just really for discussion or more for giving you information right now, and then we can discuss it at next work session. So any questions on the overall? Concerns, comments, complaints, any of those things? Okay, I move to the little numbers page. So if somebody has hard reading, make sure you have your magnifying glass on. One thing I want to point out right from the beginning is what we tried to do is we put on this third line item right here is the general sales tax, and it's the same for the other sales tax ones, is basically a flat sales tax. And this comment at the end wasn't erased, so I apologize for that. Okay. Mary and I both missed that to correct that. But it's assuming a flat sales tax. And that's where I get back to the theme of if and. If conditions say somewhat normal, which I hardly expect. I don't know which way it's going to turn over the next few months, but I'm sure there's going to be some disruption over November, December, January. But then it's okay, does it get back to somewhat normal? And as we saw this year, we had disruption at the beginning of the year, and then we're basically even with our sales tax right now through this part of the year. So is that similar to what's going to happen next year? And it's, or if things stay somewhat normal, we'll actually be up, just because I really think in this environment, people are driving more. They're not flying. They're not going on a boat. They're not taking long trips. And they're taking more trips to closer destinations from the major metro areas in Colorado to places like us. So that we're actually a little bit of benefit. And then also with the sales tax, SSI, I forgot the other S, where when you order stuff from home, the sales tax that's applied is to Georgetown, and that is up significantly, as Mary keeps pointing out in each month's treasurer's report. So we're getting the benefit from that, in that more people of our residents are staying home and purchasing things online, and we're getting the sales tax, even though we don't have
the business,
those businesses here. So, you know, we could end up in a stronger, there's probably just as much argument that we would be a stronger case than a flat sales tax. And there's quite a few arguments that if you look at the glass half empty or mostly empty or we all get locked down again and shut in our homes for a long term. There's a lot of arguments for that too. And rather than trying to pick one of those, we stuck with a flat sales tax. So any questions, concerns regarding that, what staff did with that? We did one item just down below here, building material use tax. We do think there will be a little bit less building next year. Just because the bigger projects will be kind of accounted for already. The hotel and the 3 big apartment buildings, etc. They'll be somewhat less, but there are some houses and other things, and the townhomes will be getting into full swing next year for sure. So the one other thing towards the bottom of the page is severance taxes. The next from the bottom line is dropped, and it dropped about $14,000. So that's statewide for all the different governments receiving things from severance tax. And then I don't know if I have any other comments. Part of the municipal court fines, do realize that for a couple months this year, we didn't have hardly anything going through municipal court. So it is less than what was expected, but there's some other mitigating factors obviously with that. And we end up down here, total revenues about $95,000 less. And 50,000 of that is less building permits, and that's because what I mentioned earlier, the bigger building permits are done and over with for a little bit here. The severance, the land use interest, and the building material use tax, that all ends up, that covers most of that as far as the less revenues. But it's about $95,000 less is what Mary put together here. And this is all Mary's doing, and we can change those numbers. We can ask her to change those numbers if you would like. But that's what we're starting with. Any questions, concerns, comments, or complaints? Let's move on. I know there's a lot of stuff to go through. But municipal court, there isn't much changes regarding this. We do have a little bit of an amount set aside if there's an allocation for defense attorneys. I just want to point that out. That was one thing. But otherwise, I don't really have much to say regarding court. Does anybody have any questions or concerns regarding court? And I know some of you, this is an awful lot of information, so you may not have seen all these numbers before, or if the newer board members haven't seen how this is put together on a regular basis. This may go a little quick for you. You can certainly send questions or concerns to Mary or myself regarding any of these numbers, or just jot down notes to bring it up next time when we look at it. So, but I'll just try to go through this quickly. And this is another thing, and it'll be in a number of the budgets. I put salaries and wages. It does include an appropriation, includes a 3% cost of living increase, but if conditions warrant, and that's part of, again, referring to the theme of if and. If things are somewhat normal, doesn't have to be completely normal, but somewhat normal, then that's what we've included in here. If you would like something different or would want to do something different, we can certainly change that. but staff is recommending that we have it at least in there. It doesn't mean we have to do it. It's just if conditions warrant. So we did have a small increase on the employee insurance. As far as the dental insurance, it was $1.30 per month. So we'll add that in on the subsequent version as it comes out. And then it describes all the rest of the categories, but I'll get to the numbers on this thing. On the administration.
Just one thing before we go too much further. So general fund has its own category of legal services, but it's kind of like your salary and Mary's and Jennifer's are split among different accounts and funds, and it might be helpful for the board to know what other accounts have legal services expense line items, just so that they can, kind of pull those figures together.
Lynette,
Is it
like,
talking about, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mary.
that's all right. No, 90% of the legal services are coming out of general
see.
fund. If there was a some kind of litigation or something for water or wastewater, then those would be pulled out and put in water and wastewater, say out of Jerry's bill. But
okay,
probably 98% of legal services of Jerry's time does go in general fund.
Okay, wonderful.
Then the legal services, though, for Cynthia Covell are in the water fund.
Correct.
So, and the only time, okay, maybe I'm just remembering, maybe it was because of all of the negotiations and agreements that we had to do with Blackhawk regarding the dam, that we had legal services in a few other places, and it got kind of hard to get a handle on the big picture. But if that's not occurring anymore, then we don't need to do anything.
Well, that is true. That all the dam billings from Jerry did go to water.
Right.
And, a lot of bighorn items went to water and or sewer, depending on what the situation negotiations.
Can't hear you, Mary.
Can you hear me now?
Some.
Is that better?
You're a little muffled, not as clear as you were.
Okay.
There.
Okay. But a lot of bighorn things went directly to water or sewer also.
Okay.
The negotiations with that.
Okay. And then under audit services, when should we expect a renegotiation or selecting a new auditor? I think we've talked about it, and we wanted to put that in place this year.
Kent and I were talking about it. I would assume December or January, putting out RFPs for a new auditor.
Probably should be November or December.
Okay.
As far as their timing to get on their schedule, whoever would want to get involved. That's a good reminder, Lynette.
Okay.
Mary, we probably need to figure out how we would want to do that. So.
Okie doke.
Okay, I have a lot of description of different things. And then there's no single audit expected this year. So we don't have any extra expenses shown within that. We haven't received enough grant funds to qualify requiring a single audit, which is a strange term, but it's an audit over a single category or a single grant. And that's why it's called a single audit. Most of the items within this is pretty similar to last year within the administration. And we do end up, I guess, one additional thing is that there is an expense for election. We do have an election coming up for the town in April. So that's an approximate cost that's charged us by the county to operate the election. So, but the total, even with that additional expense, is less than this year in administration. So when we get to promotions, there's some juggling that we've done regarding the management services allocation for the contracted position of the special events coordinator. We've actually helped out the promotions fund, sharing it with the general fund, or with the administration right here. But that's all I have regarding the administration fund. Do I have any questions, concerns, comments, complaints regarding the admin fund? I'll move on to the police, which is next. And I put it in the comments here, and I'll ask the police chief, although not yet, regarding a discussion on adding a fourth officer. And then there's a description of all the different items within the police budget. One thing that the pension for the police officer salaries, they're part of the FPPA system, which is a separate system from all the other employees. The state legislature passed a statute, and they're raising our rates to make it fully funded. I always love how the actuaries put in that regarding the pension system, but it's raised 0.5% in 2021, and it will continue to be raised in subsequent years.
Okay.
So just to let you know that that's part of it. We also have another thing with state legislature. The part of new legislation that was passed included a required amount for structured peer support. And that's going to cost us an additional $1,500. That's just required. Tough luck. We can't say no.
How is that 1,500 determined? Is that by community size or staff numbers, or?
I can respond to that if you want, Kent.
Sure. Go ahead, Randy.
Basically, we have developed a peer support program. If an officer does need some additional support, we have to have a fund available to pay for whatever service that might require. And based on what we have, what we would consider using, that was a estimated number of so many visits with whatever assistance an officer would need. And like Kent said, this was legislated that this has to be part of future policing.
Okay.
So there's no magical number that or formula that got to the $1,500 rather than a certain number of visits with whatever services.
Okay.
The other main thing, there's a couple other bigger items that are included with this proposed budget for the police department. Is cost for a new computer incident report software program. Current program is no longer supported by IT. It's over 20 years old. I'm trying to take Randy's bicycle away too, but this is the incident report software program. And it's quite a bit for what's being, it'll have an initial cost of $25,000.
Okay.
So that's a pretty big deal, but it's something that's desperately needed.
Okay.
So the other couple items is an additional taser and software for about $4,500. That's part of the equipment. And that's trying to be on the same level as the other tasers that we have. So, and then it's our turn regarding the Lyle Wohlers Luncheon, which is a county-wide luncheon, and it rotates among the communities. And it's our turn. If it's, they didn't have it last year, so it's a little confusing about is it our turn or not, but if it is, it's included in this budget. So that's why it's 2,500 within that. I give some information regarding vehicles and everything else. Then I guess I'll leave it at that. This is without any additional people involved. It does have an increase from 359 from 327 as far as the police department budget. But obviously you can see that the incident report software is the majority of that increase. The vast majority of it. For an additional officer, it would be quite a bit, but I guess I will turn it over to Police Marshal Williams to go over some information regarding the need for the department. Go ahead, Randy.
I don't know how much needs to be said about the need for the department. I can make this long or short. Historically, back in the 90s, before I was here, the department held up to 7 full-time officers at one point in the early 90s. Sometime in the late 90s, they gave up a position, an officer position, to hire a code enforcement officer. And apparently that went over like a rock in church. Did not go over well. That position didn't remain, but it was never returned for another officer. I'm going to look at some notes I have over here if I keep looking away. 2003, we pretty much lost all of our staff because the then marshal and another person decided to quit because they were done working without any assistance. They did bring in a Colorado Association Chief of Police group that did a complete audit of the agency in 2003 and determined then at an absolute minimum 3 officers is the least the department should be operating with. And that was 17 years ago. In the interim, I don't know if I have to explain what we do for you. You have 3 officers full-time providing 24/7 coverage. What this is meaning is we are available 24/7. When somebody goes home, they remain available to get called out anywhere from not once a night, which is always a pleasure, but you're ready. You're not going to go home. You're not going to have a cocktail. You're not going to leave town to go get groceries or whatever you might do. So your daily shift is like a fireman all through the week. Sometimes we get called out several times a night. Sometimes it requires more than one or even more than two officers getting called out for particular incidents. We've done this for quite a while. And over the past number of years, just the climate's changed, people have changed. It's unsafe for us to keep doing this with one officer, which is how we operated before. Is one officer worked the first half of the week, the other officer worked the second half of the week, and the marshal worked his Monday to Friday work week with his holidays off and was only here for administration. Our circumstances are just entirely different now. The current climate is, it's expected people are going to resist the police. It's unfortunate and it's different. 10 years ago, all of the people I would contact and have to deal with, the majority would be citizens, and citizens would know me. We'd have a rapport. Whatever had to be done could be done. Basically, they knew I'd be disappointed if it took more than one officer to accomplish it. We have so many more short-term rentals, such a transient population now. The highway's busier, everything is just busier. So what we're having is, it's just not sustainable to keep trying to provide this service without any further assistance. We are already have exceeded our overtime budget for the year. We donate time. You have 3 officers that are dedicated and choose to live in the town of Georgetown. It's not a requirement, it's a choice. We cannot, through the labor laws, require them to live within the city limits, but they all 3 choose to do so, make themselves available. But we're just tired. I don't know any other way to put it.
Randy, did you want me to share the screen for your information that you put together? Or?
I think it was emailed. I did email out a number of the statistics. They're not totally representative. Mostly what I represented in the graphs were the reactive calls and what times of day and throughout the last year. Reactive calls are where the dispatcher will call us and tell us, this is what you have to do. That has nothing to do with officer initiated calls, which you can get a gist of by the main activity report, which I also included. The numbers this year are very skewed because of all the pandemic differences. We stopped arresting people for a lot of reasons, and we have a lot of restrictions on how we get to that point. There was a period of time where we really minimized contacts with people during the March, April, May portion of the pandemic and the quarantine. So I think everybody has that. If they don't, then can certainly put them up on the board, but it's extensive to be able to read them all. So I don't know if everybody got their copies of a little report we did with graphs of how busy we've been this past year.
Yeah.
But mostly, like I said, the fact that we all 3 live here, make ourselves available to come out at all times of night is an anomaly. No other department in the county, no other department that I know of has all their officers living within their community. But what it really comes down to is not sustainable. We are working more days a week than not. Even when we're not working, we are having to jump up and go out to assist the other or whatever the circumstances are. We're providing the service, but we're just not sufficiently staffed to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and another thing that you did state briefly, Randy, but as far as the response that oftentimes takes more than one officer to handle, and the number of hours
As I
that
said,
takes. So that's becoming more frequent, and the types of calls that are requiring 2-officer response at different types of things.
So we have that. We have, where was I going to go with that? That brought something else to my mind. Okay, I love when I'm on a smooth run and then lose track.
So,
If we're in comparison, I'm sorry, Lynette, go ahead.
well, I was just wondering, I mean, I don't question the need. I was just wondering if anybody, have you started putting together projections for if you were to hire a 4th officer? How much would that total? You've got more than just the wages and salaries and benefits. You'd have more equipment, could be another vehicle, more training. I mean, it flows into pretty much all of your categories. So I just was wondering if you'd started putting figures together.
Some of the figures that I did propose in the current budget are with the hope that somewhere within the next year, because it still wouldn't happen automatically, that January 1 here, a new guy starts and he's ready to go. That within the next year, we would be able to start working that direction. We have most of the pricier equipment. We have the radios. We would need other personal defense equipment, the taser that we were talking about, or upgrading our tasers. We're about at the end of a contract with Taser, so we have to figure out what we're going to do next. Vehicle wise, I would hope, but I wouldn't imagine we're going to get an officer that's going to live in the community. I would hope that eventually that would be what we could have happen. Officers that live in the community have the take-home cars. We still have 2 cars available. One that's 4-wheel drive for bad weather, and the other one that can be driven the rest of the time. So we can equip. We have the computers available. We just purchased 2 new refurbished, not new, 2 refurbished vehicle computers, which one of them has to be deadlined. It doesn't even, we have to move keys around if we want to use that particular character. The other one is still sufficient to keep using. The cars could be used, the radios, the uniform budget is a little padded to be able to equip a person. And like you said, the lion's share of the cost is going to be salary and benefits.
Okay.
But we are in good shape to move forward. The grant money we had allowed us to equip all of our vehicles with the updated radios. And we have some extra updated portable radios that are necessary.
Okay. I guess I would like to see that, like, here's the scenario. If we don't add a 4th officer, here's what it looks like if we did add the 4th officer. How does that affect our numbers? Before we get done with our budget discussions, and just so that we can plan ahead, because as you say, it takes a while to hire and make sure you've got the right fit in the person. And but I personally think that you guys do an awesome job, but I would have to agree that what you've got going now is not sustainable, and we need to be thinking in terms of more staffing. So I'd like to move in that direction.
No. And obviously, 1 officer is only going to be a step in that direction. I wouldn't say in another couple of years and the 1 officer is notwithstanding the current growth. The hotel opening, the townhomes, especially apartment buildings are very high maintenance for us to be able to work with.
Okay.
Beyond that, in comparison, you have Idaho Springs, slightly larger than twice the size of Georgetown. They have 10 commissioned officers. They added a code enforcement officer. That's all that he does. And 2 administrative staff to take care of office work. We're a little behind that curve.
Shouldn't the, like you said, the hotel and all that, shouldn't that bring in plenty of money for us to, along with the need for the service, shouldn't it sort of offset a little bit with some taxes and whatnot?
That goes back to where at the very beginning, when I said the sales tax was set as flat, but we do have the hotel coming online in another month. And obviously, I think once that hotel gets rolling, it will be successful. So, but right now we're showing it as flat, but that doesn't mean there's other things that are already coming online that are going to, even if things turn a little south, there's other things that are coming online that will generate additional revenue. So
couldn't we look at a supplemental budget increase for another officer if, we have this extra money and whatnot, and Randy has a set number for us?
Well, we can do it either through the supplemental, but I would suggest stating our intentions to start with. Now I could see if an officer, just to throw out a round number, between salary, benefits, and the other stuff within the budget that needs to occur, and the running of additional vehicle and all that stuff, that just starting to figure that out would be about 85 to 100 as far as additional budget. Now that's just a guess. That's not a hard figure at this point. And that's assuming that, like Randy said, we started January 1st and we have Dudley Do Right ready to go. But I doubt that's going to be the case. But
Anything possible.
Yeah.
But, however, and I certainly don't want to present it as a consideration, but having time to be able to be active patrolling rather than trying to keep up with everything we're doing. We can't finish what we have to do with active investigations and reports for several days after, because we have to keep going and responding to calls for service. There is a revenue factor of having another officer. I've never been one to think that we should be a revenue generating agency or part of that, but it is a factor.
Would we be looking at overtime hours saved at all?
Eventually, initially with the training, depending on what kind of experience we can find, eventually it certainly, I'm expecting it to reduce the overtime. But
so that's instead
initially to get someone trained, it sometimes takes a little more work, and I don't even get overtime, and I don't even count my hours anymore. I take a day off, totals a couple of days off on a nice slow week. And I think everybody's noticed how busy it's been. When I started 18, 19 years ago, I started in October, mid-October. I would be at work and I was thinking I made a mistake. There was nothing happening during mud season. It was dead. I really thought I made a mistake. I don't want to say I was considering playing my gun just to see what would happen if it was excite somebody, but it was boring. I offered that when we hired Sergeant Gaskins because he's a very active officer. I didn't want him to feel he made that same mistake. But shortly after, we haven't had mud seasons or slow seasons. It doesn't slow down, runs one right into another. I thrive for one.
Okay. So I guess personally, I think we ought to try and move in that direction and actually designate it as a budget goal for next year. Given that we need a fourth officer right now, and if the apartment buildings get filled up, the hotel gets filled up, and things continue to move along, it won't be any time at all before we're needing to look at adding a fifth one. So I think adding a fourth it's just good business in my mind.
I didn't even begin to expound upon the risks that we're taking not doing this. If there were a critical incident, the scrutiny that is applied is going to address, well, schedules, work schedules. And on a personal note, I have to tell you, we can sometimes sense ourselves being a little short because it's never ending. But for the town and the individual, I think it's a little dangerous liability wise, if nothing more.
So what I hear is that we need about 100,000 somewhere in there just to look at as far as that increase.
That would be a complete number, I believe. I don't know. This would be more of a Mary and Kent question, but.
Well, it's good. For tonight, it's good enough to go forward. Let's fine tune it before we get done with our discussion. But I think adding this to our budget projections for next year, I think it's reasonable. I think it's wise. So I don't know.
Did I see Mary Smith with her hand up?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just going to ask, and this might not be the appropriate time, but doesn't CIRSA kind of weigh in on this, or audits or whatever, as far as the risk that we take on as a town with our police calls for service or your responses? I mean, do they give us any feedback on that?
I think that's more of a Kent question, but
not in a direct manner. It's kind of indirect, but that's a good question, Mary. I'll actually ask a couple questions regarding that because I haven't gotten direct feedback.
I also think too, we can't ignore what Randy has said about, the support personnel, and they're not going to take away from a certified position, but they would certainly enhance the time that a certified police officer is out there, as opposed to, some of the mundane tasks that are happening either,
right,
inside as support, obviously administrative support or code officer. I realize the pressing need is more for a police officer, but it isn't just solved with that one person either. So.
Well, and it's having that discussion with the community, because I know that there's been a couple members of the community that have questioned the need for policing, a certain amount of policing. And, it's also been a topic statewide or nationwide, but policing involves so many things. And I think you're bringing up a point, Mary, as far as there's such a wide range of police responses for different activities. And we have very limited resources, and some of that is even more limited because we don't have some of those edge of things covered as well.
I'd also think it would be supportive of us when we, as this decision is made and rolls out, that we see just a flat percentage of the increase of calls for service or calls or, incidents that police have responded to that were up X percent from 2019 to 2020. Let's see that 5-year, 10-year, you don't even have to go back 10 years, but I find it shocking that back in 1990s or whatever, that we had 7 officers.
We had a dozen bars also.
Well, okay, so all right, that makes sense. But so practical, times now, we've seen the increase, in I-70 and all that. We all know that, in the last 5 to 7 years. And so if we could just see that, you've gone up, 5%, 10%, 20%, and we just have that that chart, that graph, whatever, that just makes it, less
I would love
easier for
to
us
be
to
able,
defend too.
I would love to be able to present those statistics. Unfortunately, our statistic keeping has not been up to par. We can look at the difference, and it's not even represented the number of calls. The dispatch center has changed their CAD systems repeatedly and are not able to recover those numbers for us any longer. If we look in our own records, calls for service, I don't want to say things changed after I was appointed as marshal, but before I was appointed, we were doing we did under 200 reports a year, where immediately after we are 4 to 5 times that many.
Oh, and I realize the need for reporting is much more serious and formal
just the
now than it
calls-
was just a couple years ago. But even that anecdotal information, it may not be black and white. Maybe we can't go back 7 years and prove it, but from some of your records, the fact that, those calls have gone up.
The numbers that I've been able to give you with this type of report was not kept up.
Okay.
So
Well, we'll do the best
could
we
be-
can, though.
Yeah, we can make an effort, and I can certainly reach out for something in archives that would tell us at least moderately representative of what the changes have been in the past 5 years.
Okay.
I know beyond that, we would not have any success. The archives just aren't available.
One thing that we do have available, and it's not all encompassing because it doesn't show how much they're called out, but just municipal fines, like tickets written, the difference in the past 10 years is staggering.
Okay.
And I just wanted clarification. Would you like for your next draft then for a scenario with a fourth officer put in your next draft?
I would.
Okay. And then also, I do want to make the comment that Randy doesn't get overtime, and he has been pretty much for at least 95% of this year unable to accrue any vacation time because he's been unable to take it. And I want to point that out also. I mean, he's just flat. He can't accrue anymore.
Okay.
I haven't, Tim, are you okay with that as well? I just want to make sure with everybody that's okay. I haven't heard anything from you, Tim.
Yeah,
Or
I
from
just
you,
had
Paul.
to
I saw you.
Yeah, I just had to unmute there. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Keith, you okay?
Yeah, one question I've got, given the nature of what's happened to police in general, is regard to equipment. Do we have body cams?
We do not have body cams. The new legislation gives us until January 1st of 2023 to have them in place. I would envision they would have to be in place where I would love to have them in place much sooner than that.
We need to have
There's a whole nother cost factor involved in that.
what are the costs?
Initial costs are going to be about $3,000 to $4,000 per officer, and then more importantly are the storage costs. And it can be yes, it can be outrageous. We're starting to look. Actually, the agencies that have body cams in the county, Empire has body cams.
We need to put that on the hot list to include? What other types of equipment do we really need that we don't have? Or we have?
Yes. Obviously, some point, if we actually made this happen in our further future, we have to be possibly looking at vehicle expenses, but body cams are a big one.
What about the trucks that were leased? What's left on them as far as the lease period? Or is it over?
They were, no, not at all. Mary, are they 4-year or 5-year leases?
Go ahead, Mary.
We have 2021 is year 4, so we have 2021, 2022, and then they're done.
And then do we have the ability to buy them at that point?
For $5 a truck.
Okay, I'll buy all 3.
I think
So,
they're $750 to outsiders.
Yeah, as long as
back to you.
so it sounds like as long as we are looking at what additional needs might be needing to be added to this department in our budget, why don't we go ahead and at least explore the figures and make sure we've got good data on, you know, the equipment and the storage for body cams, should we decide to put them in before the 2022.
I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah, we do. We do have a choice.
We
always
have a choice. We have an ideal, but I think being able to not work as hard, and they did give us that much time to be able to accomplish it.
If it's not feasible,
I believe in body cams, but I also, the cost factor that is associated not just with the purchase of them is going to be the bigger problem. And I have a lot of bids starting to come in. I have our reserve officer doing a lot of researching on them. He's gone through with them with many other agencies and can get a good handle on what is quality, what is functional. The problem with the body cams and the agencies that have them, for whatever reason, they fall off when they get in physical altercation. They're magnetized onto, they have a back piece and a front piece that they just go on by magnets. So Axon is actually working hard to try to remedy that from happening. But I think if we wait a little longer, it's going to be beneficial to get a better product, because now that they're becoming more mandated, they're going to get better.
Sure.
And we might get something as simple as the tasers. We bought top of the line tasers 5 years ago, and an ad I looked at said the new one, they showed the deployment of the old one to the new one. Last time I tried deploying a taser over the summer, it did not stick, but because the line or lead to the prong, and this is just a little levity, failed to stick in the subject trying to get away. It recoiled because it was wrapped up tight and wrapped entirely around my, sometimes on a rare occasion, I might wear shorts in the summer. So
He tased himself.
We all enjoyed that taser.
so what I'm hearing you say is you would rather take more time and investigate it more thoroughly, so that you've got a better product to choose from and more accurate numbers and figures.
Correct. I was thinking 2021 budget, I'm sorry, 2022 budget would be a more appropriate time to approach the body cams.
Okay.
And
if it becomes available or a better idea before then, we will pursue it.
Absolutely.
One of the
I can
things
always-
Randy is concerned about is with body cams, it's the administration of it and the redaction and other stuff that needs to occur in order to produce them for when they get requests for it.
distribution.
Distribution.
That
And
there's, and we don't have anybody to compare with as far as what their true costs are.
Okay.
A department, as I described, Empire has 2 officers. They carry body cams, but they have yet to ever had anybody request the use. They don't get complaints except somebody not happy about getting a speeding ticket. And I'm not discrediting Empire. They're doing a very good job over there now. They have a very good chief. But Idaho Springs has a whole different function, and they are going to be a better representative of what we might have to pay, even a portion of what they pay.
Okay.
And they're just working on trying to get that dialed in themselves. So rather than jumping in and buying a discount brand or something else, because I've been approached a lot. I get regular salespersons calling wanting to show me their product, and I'm passing it on and getting it explored. But we find a lot of negatives once you start researching them. I really don't want to go with the best price on something of that kind of equipment.
Sounds good to me.
any other questions, Rob or Paul? No? Okay.
Tim,
Anything
did you have
else regarding the police department?
It's never ending.
Tim, did
we're
you have
okay.
something?
We'd love a new office, but I think everybody in town hall would love a new office.
Okay.
If anybody had any questions about the report management system, that was more of a wish list, but to toss in there, every other agency is on a consistent synchronized system, and we're using just above a DOS-based system that we can't really get any more licenses to, and it's not serviced anymore. It's not maintained.
You're a typewriter in an IT world.
It's better than a typewriter. Only because of the carbons. It's hard to find carbon paper. Yeah, I'm of that age.
NCR.
I can get you.
All right. Okay. Are we ready to move on?
I hope so.
Me too.
Okay. I got to find my budget again.
Okay.
If you just go to the next page, as I get there, okay. I can go back and go to it, I think. Share my screen, get to it. Okay. Emergency Services Fund is what we pay to the fire authority. It's basically a pass-through revenue dedicated to the, well, it's
not really pass.
It's not really pass-through, but we pay for the fire authority. I need to change that language.
Yeah.
But we left it at the amount. I haven't received an updated amount from Kelly. Mary did raise it $1,000, but that's just the difference in valuation. That's how they calculate the payment
Mhm.
for the town.
I
The
did,
amount
I
for
did-
dispatch fees increases, but
yeah, I did speak with Kelly today, and he said he had just gotten the figures from the assessor, so we should have them fairly soon too. So,
okay. That's
and it
and
was
the dis
pretty much the same. It didn't really increase radically.
okay,
So,
good. We'll end up around the same amount then. The dispatch costs have increased significantly and they'll continue to increase. So that's just a cost we have to put up with. The building services fund is, this one is definitely is only paid out when we receive building permits or land use applications. We do just have a little amount for code enforcement. But you know, 75% of this is of our building permit fees on the revenue side are paid out for the building services that are provided. So that's not looking for anything different as we go forward. The road and bridge fund, and I'll kind of go to the numbers because it's quicker and easier than going through the words here, even though the words probably work better for a lot of folks to understand what's said in the numbers. But here you show right in the middle of the page, and I'm circling it now on the share screen as far as the 597,877 for the road improvement plan. Then now we haven't identified what that will all include, but we'll have a project next year that can be a significant project, and we'll get back to doing using that sales tax to redo some roads. The one road that I think is very significant, or a couple places that I see that will be done. Obviously, we'll have Taos Street from 10th to 11th to do. And then the bridge, or the 22nd Street Bridge, on both sides of that bridge, the asphalt is failing. It's alligator cracking. It's wasn't installed. What the stories were given to me wasn't installed correctly, so it's a significant problem. We also got several, again, we'll have a concrete work that will need to be done, different drainage curbs that need to be done, that are just as important as putting the roads together. And also what the road and bridge is doing right now, as far as they're getting pretty far, is between 10th and 11th on Main Street, as far as the millings on it, on that portion of road. Jules, before he got hurt over the weekend, was contacting the vendor that provides the Reclamite or the rejuvenator, that the liquid that is put on top of that to make it a much more cohesive surface, much more structured surface. And that will be put on at least that block of from 10th to 11th on Main, and also from 17th to Skyline, or a little bit beyond Skyline on Main Street. That was done earlier this year because the house that's being built, they're done with their services now. We are leaving alone because there's a subdivision proposal that will require some installation of water and sewer mains on Main Street between 9th and 10th. So we're going to leave that alone, get the utilities done before we move forward with the millings on that block and further on between 8th and 9th and Main. The other thing within the road and bridge, this 35,000 is more than the 26,000 as far as road maintenance. We are running up end up just a little bit over each year regarding the road maintenance. There needs to be additional dedicated to that.
Mhm.
There's also a $4,000 that Mary put in here for the additional streetlights on Argentine. So we're gonna have additional cost for both the operations and the maintenance of those lights that are our responsibility. They're not Excel's for the 18 additional lights on Argentina Brownell. Lynette, you have a question?
Argentine to Brownell?
Argentine and Brownell
Okay, so in the gateway,
in the Gateway project, yeah.
okay, gotcha.
And Kent, I believe it's for the whole stretch of Argentine, not just the new section as far as maintenance and changing the light bulbs and stuff. I think it goes all the way from the roundabout up to 6th.
Yeah, I thought they were already
Oh.
charging us that. They'll part from 11th to 15th, but
Well, yes, but I'm just saying maintenance, not the
right.
electrical charges. But I believe it's all the way to the roundabout as far as what we're responsible for is
Yep.
with maintenance on them.
Okay.
Yep. Any of the fancy looking lights, they're ours.
Okay.
So, traffic control, there's 1,000 additional for the signs. We're behind on signs. We need more signs. And then down here is an additional amount. And once we get to another part of the budget, as far as the bridge, this is an amount for bridges dedicated. The 22nd Street Bridge, there's been a recommendation by CIRSA regarding safety rails. It'll probably end up costing us $50,000 to $60,000, but this isn't a little amount. There's a bit larger amount in another part of the budget that's dedicated for that.
Okay.
So that's one project looking at for next year as well.
Hey, Kent,
And-
can I ask you a question real quick?
You bet, Tim. Go ahead.
Back on the signs, are those signs, are you needing those for the reflectivity requirements, or are signs just wore out?
There's a variety of reasons.
Okay.
A lot of no parking, a lot of different signs needed in a lot of different areas. We keep running into
Okay.
it. So part of it's the reflectivity, yes, but the street signs, yeah, there's still a concern regarding that. We kind of ran into a dead end with DRC regarding that, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay.
So that's the total for road and bridge. It looks like an awful lot more, but remember, most of it is the road improvement plan or spending money that we didn't spend in 19 and 20.
Years.
So any questions, concerns, comments, complaints, or at least right now, you can have questions, concerns, comments, complaints later, but anything immediate. And then I'm not cutting someone off, am I? Okay. Parks and Recreation, I did not give you the words. Did not complete that in time. I'll have that completed by next time for you. And the only things that I want to mention, and Mary, you may need help me, maybe not. This part for Santalets includes an amount that's additional at the warming hut. I'm waffling regarding that just because we need to fix the warming hut bathrooms rather than the Santalets, but it's just an amount that trying to find a way around. This 15,000 it does include the final trees that will be taken out of City Park, and then a couple trees that were taken out of Whirlin, and then as well as the big tree in Strauss Park. That's unfortunately we're going to have to take out the two. Well, there's two trees. One's not as special a tree as the evergreen, but both of them are having significant problems and will need to be removed. And it doesn't matter how much I say it during a public meeting, as when they get taken out, I'm sure you guys will be contacted by numerous people, as well as people at town hall here, saying, why are we doing that? And it's because the tree's dead, mostly dead, not all dead, mostly dead. Just to let you know. And then the other thing, and I'll have this better explanation when get the Word document done that competes with that. So we have an amount of 75,000 for capital outlay. That's not going to be enough to do the Strauss Park project when we get the estimate for it. So we can either do it over multiple years, or we can do something to package together in 1 year and do a financing thing to make it get done. But when that plan gets finally produced, we'll have some additional decisions for the board at that time. The one thing I do want to suggest, and this is the same thing as I have regarding the police department, is we didn't put it in here because it's more staff recommendation than the park board recommendation. Staff may state this as more important, but I really think we need to add a seasonal person to the parks maintenance for 12 weeks, 20 to 30 hours a week. This summer we were able to get through, but we have 72 baskets of flowers now. Well, we'll have 80 next year. Yeah. Baskets of flowers. And that doesn't include all the whiskey barrels. And we got a whole bunch more whiskey barrels now because of this pedestrian mall. And I don't know if that will occur next year as well or not. But, and then we are increasing more and more, and we're still having problems as far as the trash containers. And we're up to 32 or 36. I need to have that number correct in my head. But trash containers that during the summer basically need to be emptied every single day. And we still don't have enough on the backside of the lake, and we still have problems. And you know, I can have my parks employee work 7 days a week, but then I don't get to have my parks employee for more than a month or two. Yeah. And a seasonal employee, we have enough. We have 10 parks. And once you see, I'm really excited about the parks master plan, but it's also, it does highlight how much of operation and maintenance we're trying to do. And I know we were able to do a partial job for many, many years without a full-time person. But the need is there. And I think this is the simplest and easiest fix for right now, as far as a seasonal person so that we can work out weekend schedules better and we can have better maintenance of all this use we're getting. And the expectations from both the citizens in town and people who visit our lovely town. So just give you that, and then I'll ask if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or complaints.
I'm just going to jump in and say I'm personally supportive of at least that seasonal person. You know, maintenance, we can't keep adding things without maintaining what we have. And that was one of my biggest concerns last year, and it continues to be a concern. And I know Kevin is, you know, working hard and doing as much as he can, but there's only so much, you know, it's kind of like the police department. So there has to be some additional help to maintain what we have, because otherwise it's turned to shit.
Agreed.
I agree with Mary too. I know that the a lot of times the road department has to step in and help out, and it would be better if they could do road work instead of watering baskets and other things.
Mary's got time on Thursday mornings, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
She's muted.
You're lucky.
Yeah,
Probably.
I'm not very good at gardening, or I would help.
You realize she knows where you live.
Yeah, but I'm hiding in a remote location because
Yeah. You have disclosed that though, so it's not an undisclosed location. Okay.
And then finally, the last part of the general fund, which is normally what we cover in this work session. I gave you the entire budget. Mary and I did. Mary did most of this work. I mean, we discuss it all the time, but the last part of the general fund is the non-departmental, and probably we have this request each year for the community center contribution, and they've provided us letter to us today. So that got completed. And then this is the match that we send to the promotions department, 20,000 for that. It's 100% match. But again, with all the stuff that's kind of happening, germinating, trying to occur with promotions, and that helps our sales tax revenue, obviously. And it's going to become critical as we go forward. You know, this is the resources that are sent to promotions. So that's it for the general fund. And I'll ask you if you want to stop there, or do you want to keep going tonight? We can take care of everything else in the general fund's next meeting, or I can continue now. What's your pleasure?
let's do it.
Let's stop. Break.
I'm voting stop. I think you're gonna start losing me. So
yeah, I think there's a saturation point that we're in.
yeah. We may end up repeating things next meeting just because yeah. So I think whenever, you know, we've covered a lot of territory, and we can come back with thoughts, but I think we've covered enough for tonight.
Excuse me, Lynette.
Yes.
Just for clarification for this next draft for the next work session, would you also like to see the seasonal parks person just scenario with it in there?
Mary's nodding her head. I'm nodding my head. How about everybody else?
Yep.
I'm nodding my head.
Okay.
I'm nodding my head.
I'm beating my
All
head.
right, good deal.
Okay.
So I noticed that we had nothing expended or nothing budgeted for weed control. Why is that?
That program with the county has been shelved, I guess, for at least for right now, for the past 2 years, I believe.
At least. It's longer than that. I think it's probably more like 4.
I'm thinking 7.
Can we delete that line item so that it doesn't?
I thought it was 64.
It depends on, I'd have to look back and see the last time we had a budgeted amount in there, because it will only let me do it after so many years.
Yeah, well,
if there's something
how
in
has
there,
moved?
it won't let me take it out, but I can try to take that out for you.
You always budgeted it when I was with the road and bridge.
Yeah,
And I
it's,
left
I
in
know it's been a little
2015.
bit of time that it has been defunct, but
But it doesn't mean that you can't go out and pull them yourself, you know.
I did that yesterday.
Well, you missed a few.
I was in my
All
remote
right.
location.
Are we done?
I think
Thank you
we
to
are.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
And I'll remember to take a Benadryl from all the cats next week.
Good thing you were socially distanced.
Put them on that agility course.
We need to get one.
No, we need to not spend money on that when we have other things more pressing.
So we'll see you
I
soon.
don't know. If it was your allergy, you wouldn't be saying that.
My agility, is that what you said?
Allergy.
Oh, I don't have any.
All right, do they have to like
All right.
hold bacon and then or?
I
Good
think
night,
we're
John.
done. We're deteriorating fast. So good night, everyone. Thanks very much.
Oh my God.